So I've had my first customer complaint. I was sitting there at about 5:30 in the evening a couple of days ago. Messenger popped up. It popped up on a car that I know who I sold it to, and the person messaging me wasn't the person I sold that car to, so I wondered what it was all about. And this is the message I got. Name of the customer, which I've taken off, which is her daughter. Just took this in as it was due MOT, and it's going to cost her over £600 to get it repaired. And they said the whole back end is corroded and the tyres were illegal. I thought it had new tyres on it. She's only driven this 3 times since having it from you, as the clutch was stiff, so I'm not happy, as you assured me this was sage, I think she meant safe, for her to drive, and it obviously wasn't. So as it didn't, the message coming through was from a conversation about a different vehicle. I asked which car is this, do you have the registration? And she gave me the registration and explained the girl had come from Taunton to buy it. At which point I realised what had gone on, because I remember this lady messaging me about this car, which had already sold, the convertible. And I told her I had another vehicle coming in that she could take a look at, and I gave her the price for that vehicle. And she said to me she couldn't afford that. Was there any way I could do it cheaper for her daughter? And I said the only way she could do it was to take as is without me doing any work to it, which I felt was safe, because the vehicle was actually Stuart, who owns the unit's sister-in-law's car, and we'd actually bought the car and provided it to her before, done the MOT work for her before, and she'd driven it around for a bit, and she then decided she wanted to change to a Golf, so we bought it back off her. So this lady had this little Fiat 500 from me in August 2020. So what we're talking about, something like 7 months ago, she had this car off me, I think, roughly. So she's messaged me after 7 months, and she's saying that they've taken it in for a MOT and it needs £600 to get repaired, as the whole rear end is corroded and the tyres were illegal. She says, I thought it had new tyres on it. I don't remember putting new tyres on it, because I didn't do anything on it, because she bought it as is. So I remember them coming up. They looked at the car, they drove the car around. Her brother drove it, took it for a good long test drive, came back with it. There was no mention that the clutch was stiff at that time. I've not known any 500 have a stiff clutch. They squeak, but they're not stiff. And at no time they said had any complaints about it at all. And like I said, they decided to buy as is. You know, I gave them a price for giving it with a warranty and a fresh service and all that, but they said they couldn't afford that. They were happy with the car as it was, and they'd take it as it was. Now, obviously, it doesn't negate me from any serious faults with this vehicle, selling it as is. It just means I wasn't going to do any work to it. If there was any serious faults with it, they'd still have come back. So anyway, so she gave me the registration, and I thought I'll hop on it and I'll check what the MOT says. Now, those of you who know, as I've watched my videos before, I take customer service very seriously. I take the job very seriously, and I would never want to sell a car to someone for their daughter that was unsafe, that wasn't good value for money, and something that she wasn't going to be unhappy with. It's just, there's no £500 profit for me or whatever in a car is not worth my personal reputation. So, I do stand behind what I sell. And the idea that someone's got a car that's then had to go for an MOT, albeit 7 months later, that is unsafe, worried me. So, like I say, I thought I'd go and check the MOT out. So here's the MOT. So it's a fail. And the actual fail is repair immediately. Near side rear shock absorber has excessively worn bush. So the bush at the top of the rear shock absorber was the only actual fail of the MOT. That's the only thing that needed to be replaced for the car to be MOT'd. Then it said repair as soon as possible, the battery is insecure. And then it said monitor and repair if necessary, front exhaust mounting defective. Now, if anybody's worked on a Fiat 500 or a Ford Ka, you'll know that there's a exhaust mounting at the very front of the engine, which always rots out. But because there's 2 mounts either side of it, not very far away, it doesn't actually mean the exhaust moves at all. You can run the vehicle without those perfectly happily. The rear exhaust has a minor leak of exhaust gas, so she's got, a little blow on her exhaust, which is, we've got to bear in mind, this vehicle, I think, is a 2010, this vehicle. Near side rear brake hose had slight corrosion to ferrule, offside rear brake hose has slight corrosion to ferrule. So those of you that know that just means that there's a little bit of surface rust on the ferrule. It doesn't mean the brake's unsafe, otherwise it'd obviously be a repair immediately. It's just noting there's a bit of surface rust on it. Rear side rear coil spring mounting corroded but not seriously weakened. So this is the big one. So this is the whole rear end of the car is rotten thing. Near side rear coil spring mounting corroded but not seriously weakened. Offside rear coil spring mounting not seriously weakened. Rear axle corroded. Now all of those threes are the rear beam axle on a Fiat 500 Ford KA. Now again, any of you that have ever got under one of these that is more than what 6 or 7 years old, you will see that the rear beam on them get crusty. I don't think they had any paint on them from the factory. They get surface rust on them. And normally, if I'm doing a retail car, I will get underneath and wire brush it off and give it a coating of hammerite or stone chip just to protect it. But they only ever fail, MOT, if they're actually rotten right the way through. And I've only ever seen one of those where it's rotten right the way through because the metal's so thick. But they do get crusty, and you can wire brush it off and tidy it up. And then it's got offside rear tyre worn smooth on inner edge. So she said, oh, all the tyres are bad. You said you put new tyres on it. It's only actually mentioning that one offside rear tyre has worn smooth on the inner edge. And is that... no, I thought that might be the same as the actual bush that worn. But anyway, so it's maybe offside rear tyre worn on the inner edge. So it's the tyres, it's a tyre that has some worn on the edge of it. Both time daylight running lights not working well. Again, if anybody's had a Fiat 500, you know they blow every 30 seconds and they're not actually needed. So I asked the lady, have you actually looked at the MOT? No, I messaged you. So what's happened is the garage rang her up and said to her, you got £600 worth of repairs. So basically they were quoting for absolutely everything to be done, including all of the advisories. And she's immediately messaged me and told me that I've sold her a duff car, when the only actual fail, the only unsafe thing on the vehicle is a worn rear shock absorber bush. The rest of it are advisories. Look at the previous year's MOT, so the point I actually, so like I say, bear in mind she had this for 7 months. We MOT'd it for Stuart's sister-in-law when she'd had it for a bit, so, you know, a few months in advance of her buying the vehicle. So what was that? It was 5 months in advance of the lady buying the vehicle for her daughter. And what did it fail for on that MOT? Driver's view probably had a smelly hanging off the windscreen. Rear front exhaust mounting defective, so the same exhaust mounting that, like I say, you don't actually need. Then it says near side front tyre worn close to legal limit, offside front tyre worn close to legal limit, near side rear tyre close to legal limit, offside rear tyre worn, and rear service brake binding. Now, none of those are mentioned on the MOT we've just done. So bear in mind, all the tyres are being saying near legal. Looking again at this MOT that's just gone through, doesn't mention any of those tyres. So she said, you said it just had tyres on it. It probably had. It had to have done to have gone through this MOT. If she's driven it as little as she says she has, to have gone through this MOT and have no mention of tyres at all, I was probably correct. It probably had tyres, because you can't go from an MOT over a year ago mentioning all the tyres being low to one where they're not mentioned at all other than one of them. So it must have had tyres. So I said to the lady, how much have they actually quoted you for getting it? Because by this time I was now on the phone to the lady. I gave her a call back. How much are you actually, and this is, what, 6 o'clock at night. How much is the garage actually quoting you to get it through its MOT, to just do the MOT repair? And she said £200. So they wanted to charge her £200 to replace one rear shock absorber, which is a £30 part, those shock absorbers for those KAs. And that's retail, that's not even trade. Now, obviously, you'd want to do both at the same time. I'd want to do both shock absorbers at the same time. There's literally a bolt at the top and a bolt at the bottom. You put the car on a lift, the rear suspension sags down, you undo one bolt at the top, one bolt at the bottom, put a new one on. It literally takes you 5 minutes per side, and they wanted £200 for it. I didn't think the quote for £600 was bad overall if they were going to put a brand new rear axle in, which is only actually 150 quid part for a rear axle, but there is a lot of faffing around swapping it over. But they wanted £200 to swap out a shock absorber. So at this point I said to the lady, look, if you're really that happy, you bring me the car and I will swap both shock absorbers out for you, and at the same time I will wire brush all of the rear axle, and I will cure rust it, and I will hammerite it all up for you so that it's all clean and tidy, and I'll do the whole thing for 150 quid. I thought that was absolutely fair. At which point she said, thanks, I'll get back to you. And then she must have had it MOT'd, because I've got the latest MOT down here. And she's obviously put it through the MOT and just got the exhaust mounting. She's left the front exhaust mount, which again I say isn't important. She's left the leak on the exhaust. She's not worried about the slight corrosion to ferrules. She's not worried about doing anything to the rear axle. So she's probably had the tyre done and the shock absorber done. So after obviously me staying late, speaking to her, going through, checking all this out, what did I get? I got another message come through. That was the second message was, "Tar for your help yesterday. She's got a cheaper quote from another garage." At this point, I thought, well, you actually told me I'd sold an unsafe vehicle, and all you're now saying is, "Tar, thanks for your help yesterday," which, to be honest, I take that really quite seriously, that kind of comment. But at the end of the day, what I have to respect, and this is what I replied to her: no problem at all. I know it read scary, but nothing really concerned there. Would be worth wire brushing the rear beam, putting some Hamrite on it. It's a job that can be done at home easily, nothing complicated. And she's put fab ta. I appreciate when you read an MOT like that, and someone's saying to you it's £600 to replace everything, and that rear end is rotten. It was probably more the garage than it was her. Should she jump straight onto a message to me after 7 months? I don't know. But I can appreciate from her point of view that the reading she hadn't read the MOT. She jumped straight on a messenger to me, didn't she, without checking the MOT out. And it turns out what happens is the garage has spoken to her son, and her son had rung her, and you get a bit of Chinese whispers. The garage at the end of the day is doing its thing. It's quoting for doing all of the work, including the advisories. I suppose is fair enough. The quote for just replacing the shock absorber sounded very steep to me. Even if it was both sides, it sounded steep to me. But I don't know. Comment down below, guys. Comment down below. What's your thought on this situation? Was she right in messaging me? Do you think that the advisories make that car a bad car? Do you think I handled it the right way? Do you think she had any recourse with me? What's your thoughts? I'm interested to see what people's thoughts are on this. Because obviously I've got my point of view, but like I say, I'm taking it a little bit personally because it was made out that I'd sold a daughter a duff, and I never think lightly of taking people's money for vehicles. I know a lot of people, it's not throwaway change. They've saved up to do it, especially with their first car. I don't take things lightly. So to have someone sort of say to me that I've done them over gets me. But again, I can see, like I say, how the way the garage spoke to her about what the fails were, that it sounded very scary. But yeah, give your comments below. Give your feedback on what you think of the situation.